Welcome back to Creative Alternatives. Today we are exploring futuristic transportation ideas. Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that the horizon you've stared at your whole life has finally begun to move. Not the sun, not the clouds, but the world itself shifting beneath your feet because humanity has finally dared to chase a dream bigger than gravity, bigger than speed, bigger than the limits we once accepted as unbreakable. Picture a future where the ordinary act of traveling, once slow, frustrating, and exhausting, becomes something so breathtakingly fluid and emotionally electrifying that every journey feels like stepping into a miracle crafted by human imagination. Though those are centuries away. It hums in laboratories, it whispers in prototypes, it sparks in the restless minds of dreamers who refuse to surrender to the idea that the best days of discovery are behind us. Think of transportation not as a necessity, but as an experience that awakens wonder. Imagine vehicles that don't just carry your body, but elevate your spirit, technologies that dissolve the boundaries between distant places and make the impossible feel intimate. The future of travel is no longer about efficiency alone. It is about reawakening the thrill of exploration, the childlike joy of seeing the world expand before your eyes, the exhilaration of moving through space with the elegance of a thought. Now envision stepping into a pod that feels less like a machine and more like a sanctuary, smooth surfaces that warm to your touch, lights that adjust to your heartbeat, soft resonant tones that calm your nerves. The door closes with a whisper, and suddenly you are floating. Not jolting, not vibrating, not rumbling across the earth, floating as if gravity itself has gently stepped aside to let you pass. Magnetic levitation technology transforms the harshness of motion into an almost spiritual glide. Every acceleration feels like rising into a dream. Every curve feels choreographed, like the world itself is partnering with you in a dance. There is no pollution trailing behind you, no roar of an engine, only the serene hum of electromagnetic fields doing their silent, miraculous work. In this future, speed becomes an expression of possibility, not a threat. You don't feel pushed or pulled, you feel carried. The landscape outside your window blurs into ribbons of color, every passing moment an invitation to imagine what else humanity can transcend. Cities that once felt unbearably distant become neighbors. Entire countries shrink to the size of your lunch break. A trip that used to consume your day now slips into your schedule like a gentle pause, a moment of reflection rather than a draining ordeal. You begin to feel time not as a burden but as a gift returned to you by the grace of innovation. But perhaps the most emotionally stirring part of this vision is the way these technologies reconnect us with each other. Faster travel doesn't just move our bodies, it moves our relationships. Suddenly, your family isn't hours away. Your friends aren't separated by geography. Long-distance love doesn't ache the way it used to. The world feels smaller, warmer, more reachable. We often talk about technology as something that isolates us, yet futuristic transportation holds the power to undo that distance, to bring human connection back into the center of our lives, to make togetherness effortless. Imagine watching a city skyline melt into view as your pod silently arrives at a floating station suspended like a shimmering crystalline island in midair. No chaos, no honking horns, no suffocating exhaust, just clarity, space, light. You step out feeling refreshed, not drained. You feel empowered, not delayed. You feel like the future has wrapped around you in a moment of pure possibility. What makes this revolution so emotionally powerful is not the machines themselves, but what they say about us. They say that we are still capable of dreaming beautifully. They say that we haven't surrendered to the weight of what is practical. They say that we still believe in a tomorrow that can outshine today. Futuristic transportation isn't just a collection of engineering triumphs. It is a declaration of hope. It tells every person who has ever felt stuck, trapped, or limited that there is always a way forward, faster, cleaner, kinder. And as we stand at this threshold, we can almost feel the pulse of that future in our hands. It vibrates with promise. It beckons with wonder. It reminds us that the world is still vast, still stunning, still worth reaching for. Traveling will soon become more than movement. It will become an emotional experience, a celebration of human brilliance, an intimate dance between innovation and desire. And this, Just the beginning of what awaits us is the dawn of a transportation revolution that will reshape not just our cities, but our hearts. Imagine stepping outside and seeing not cars stuck in endless traffic, not buses groaning beneath the weight of time, but sleek autonomous vehicles gliding past in purposeful silence. They move like a synchronized orchestra, no collisions, no sudden bursts of chaos, no impatient horns. They are not driven by frustration or fatigue, but guided by an intelligence that learns, adapts, and cares for your life more fiercely than any distracted driver ever could. Futuristic transportation is not merely a rearrangement of metal and wheels. It is the emotional liberation of the human mind from fear, confusion, and constant haste. Picture a world where transportation moves without friction, where every ride is an unspoken promise of safety and elegance. Autonomous aerial taxis rise into the morning air, wings reflecting sunlight like glimmers of liquid gold. They take off vertically, no runways, no long acceleration paths, just a graceful upward motion that feels like the world opening beneath you. The moment you ascend, a stillness floods your senses. The distant grid of streets once packed with impatient lives fades into abstraction. Above it all, movement becomes poetry. You're no longer navigating obstacles, you're soaring above them. These aircraft don't just carry bodies, they carry choices. They give time back to dreamers. They transform travel into reflection, conversation, peace. You sit in the seat not gripping anything, not bracing against impacts, not calculating exit routes. Instead, you breathe, you think, you reconnect with thoughts long buried beneath deadlines and urgency. In this future, transportation systems are woven into a living digital network that feels almost sentient. Roads no longer exist as static infrastructure, they're fluid channels of communication. Sure. Every route adjusts instantly, shifting like water around stones. Your vehicle knows which restaurant you're headed toward, which concert you must arrive at, which appointment is essential. It understands what time means to you. And so it moves, not just with urgency, but with empathy. But perhaps the most emotionally electrifying innovation lies beneath the Earth hyperspeed tunnels stretching like veins beneath cities and continents. You step into a capsule that locks around you like a protective embrace. The atmosphere inside glows with soft, luminescent warmth. Then the world shifts. Not violently, not suddenly. Instead, it feels like being drawn forward by a whisper. The acceleration is so smooth you barely notice movement until your screen shows distances collapsing in real time. 1,000 miles dissolve into minutes. Imagine two cities once separated by mindset now fused into a single rhythm. The barriers that made people settle, stay, sacrifice dreams because of geography, they vanish. You can work in one place, live in another, roam across regions like you once walked across rooms. Humanity becomes freer. Think about how families could exist differently. No child needs to grow up missing someone because life pulled them apart geographically. No dream needs to shrink because distance makes it impossible. Travel becomes effortless, affordable, sustainable. Time stops being something we surrender to traffic and waiting. It becomes something we hold like a cherished moment, and then fuel disappears. Not fuel as we know it, not fumes, not destruction, not the scraping of the Earth's crust for combustion. Instead, energy becomes almost invisible. Wireless charging roads breathe power into wheels. Solar skin surfaces drink sunlight and convert it silently. Wind channels hidden inside infrastructure turn motion into energy, not waste. Everything recycles itself. And because vehicles move without friction, they're built without sharp edges, without roaring mechanical anger. They become sculptural, soft, inviting. You don't enter them, you flow into them. Oh, you don't wait for them. They arrive precisely when needed, like an extension of your intention. Cities transform. Concrete jungles dissolve. Highways, once monuments to pollution, turn into green corridors filled with vertical gardens, vines climbing over forgotten overpasses, nature reclaiming what machines once strangled. Transport hubs rise like living art, floating terminals suspended by magnetics, glowing bridges that redirect elevated vehicles, seamless networks stretching across oceans. Yes, oceans. Imagine transparent sea tunnels, autonomous pods gliding beneath waves, the shimmer of marine life passing overhead like galaxies in motion. What was once unreachable, intimidating, foreign, now becomes a breathtaking commute. And in this future, travel stops being transactional. It becomes ceremonial. It becomes the moment when life pauses so you can feel movement happening beneath your existence, a reminder that you are not anchored, not fixed, not trapped by distance. You become a person who can reach farther, connect deeper, dream wider, dream wider. And this future isn't just engineered, it is desired. It rises from a collective ache for ease, for belonging, for possibility. It unfolds because humanity refuses to stay still. And as the world builds these systems, tunnels beneath mountains, skylanes above skylines, multi-level moving pathways, transportation stops being a burden. Imagine a future where you don't just travel, you transform. A world where transportation is not a movement from place to place, but a recalibration of your identity, a moment in which every single journey shifts the arc of your life. You wake up, step outside, and the world greets you not with frustration or delay, but with an electric pulse of possibility. For tea, you stand before a portal not metaphorically, but literally. A quantum teleportation chamber humming with the faint vibration of power beyond comprehension. You are scanned, translated into streams of light, and in less than a breath, you are somewhere else, not simulated, actually there. A city that once took hours to reach now lies beneath your eyelids like a memory awakened. The emotional shock of instant relocation is unreal. Where travel once felt like distance, now it feels like freedom. The time once wasted in traffic, waiting rooms, terminals gone. You do not arrive stressed. Your heart does not race from delays. Your patience is not drained. You step into the future and you are renewed, untouched by fatigue. And what's more astonishing is how deeply human this technology makes the world feel, because now separation no longer exists. The borders that fractured families, fractured ambition, fractured love dissolve. But teleportation is only the crown jewel, because outside the cities, the earth itself begins to lift. Roads once carved into landscapes become kinetic platforms rising on air currents. Vehicles convert into hovering capsules powered by atmospheric ionization. They glide above ground, bending through wind tunnels carved invisibly through space. You do not feel turbulence. You do not feel motion. You feel suspended, as if the planet is holding you gently in its palms. And this future has another breathtaking dimension: biological vehicles. Living transportation systems that pulse with bioelectric energy. Crafted from engineered organic matter, soft shell structures that breathe oxygen, maintain optimal warmth, and adapt to your physiology. You enter and the interior recognizes your body temperature, your posture, your heartbeat. It adjusts its texture, molding into comfort. The walls aren't plastic, they are living fibers, responsive and protective. If you speak, the pod listens. If you rest, it dims. If you cry, it glows with soft hues that soothe. Travel stops being overwhelming and becomes therapeutic. These vehicles don't pollute, they regenerate oxygen, absorb carbon, restore the air as they move through it. They biomimic migrating organisms, traveling with grace, gliding like a flock of birds, sharing invisible pathways. They do not harm the planet, they heal it, and humanity changes because of it. Cities evolve into floating constellations, suspended platforms drifting over oceans, tethered not by concrete but by magnetic anchors that pulse deep beneath the water. People travel between suspended habitats, clusters in the clouds, terraced aerial gardens, hovering research sanctuaries above forests that remain untouched. Traveling becomes an act of preservation, not destruction. And the emotional transformation is immeasurable. Your dreams no longer shrink to fit your surroundings. You no longer have to choose between ambition and belonging. When distance is meaningless, choice becomes limitless. You can dance on the opposite side of the world and return home for dinner. You can work where your passion thrives and still hold the hands of those you love at night. You can chase opportunity, not with sacrifice, but with joy. And the most profound shift is cultural. People stop building walls, stop isolating, stop believing that home must be permanent. Home becomes fluid. Chovo, a place you carry, not a place you lose. Because transportation, real transportation, does not move bodies, it moves lives. And when the future finally reaches its full bloom, the world will no longer feel massive or intimidating. It will feel intimate, interconnected like nerves in a living organism. The planet becomes a shared space, not divided territories stitched by borders and decades of distance. We travel not because we must, but because it feels like touching possibility itself. Movement becomes memory, motion becomes identity. And every journey whispers the same truth: we were never meant to stay still. Humanity has always belonged to the horizon. Transportation simply becomes our wings.